I just want to welcome everyone and just had a few thoughts and ideas I thought I'd share with the previous year. I think there's many lessons that can be learned with the events that are currently unfolding in the past 2 months. I think there's a lot that can be learned, as well as the fact that with this winter storm that's taking its toll throughout places, Oregon, Texas, really took a hit. And losing power, losing heat, the ability to cook food, buy food, find food, uh, has really shown that our supply lines are not what we thought they were. They're a lot more frail than we thought they were. The ability to generate electricity, for instance, in one of, if not the one of the most wealthiest, energy dense states such as Texas, and there were failures on pretty much every uh, form of electricity generation. The largest, by comparison, was the renewable windmill investment that gets lots of tax breaks, a lot of government subsidies put into that industry as they push for this go green idea. And you'll see right now, in the midst of this crisis, instead of coming up with scenarios to help those affected, the politics continue to be rammed down your throat from your large mainstream media, defending the failures of their ideas. And the news and the topics and the possible ways we could go on a conversation are really endless. But what it shows is the ruling class has an agenda that not it does not put you first. So you need to understand that. You need to remember that as we are shaped more and more socialistically, we are actually seeing things early into this that mimic third world countries. Oregon, you can look up a recent event, I think it was yesterday, in which, due to the power failures at a large market, Fred Meyer's, I think, it must be more of a West Coast business, lost power through, a mountain of perishable foods, meat, cheese, juice, into the dumpster. Now, this is in freezing conditions, mind you, which we who grew up a little more simple understand that in the event of a power outage, if the temperature outside is below freezing, you can actually move your food outdoors into coolers or boxes, keep them safely. And this will actually mimic them being refrigerated and oftentimes even frozen. But these items were thrown into dumpsters. And in the midst of this crisis, and let me back up just a little bit. Citizens saw this happening and went to the dumpsters to try and save, salvage, and distribute any of the food that they could, which I see personally nothing wrong with it. But the way that this governmental mindset works, the owners, instead of simply saying, hey, that's our refuge, that's what we throw away. If you want it, you can have it. We don't care. We're going to write it off as a tax loss anyway, which they will. They call law enforcement officers to come and police their garbage and almost have a situation defending trash. Defending trash. Seriously, folks. When people tried to report on it, the reporter was actually threatened with arrest for trespassing, and this reporter specifically just wanted to engage with the police, not necessarily what was in the dumpsters. These are the people overseeing your rescue, as it were. These are the people in the system that is supposed to somehow step in and save you in the middle of the largest economical disturbance we as a nation have seen since the Great Depression. And we're early into it. The ripple effect continues to show. Wheat harvest may be scarce in the country, as I think it was 45%. You can look up Ice Age Farmer. He's really good at keeping up with these numbers. The wheat harvest was hit with this unexpected and unprepared for weather that Texas is having. When I think of rolling blackouts, I think third world nation. When I think of people digging in dumpsters for sustenance, I think of third world nations. When you're told by your leadership that you can't go to work, not because you don't want to go to work, but because they say you can't go to work, I think of third world nations. When they are the ones that endlessly mound resources for themselves and their departments through taxes and other ventures. But they look at you and say there's something wrong with you if you do it. I think of third world nations. And Americans have slowly, like kind of like the frog in the pot of water, they have slowly been mind trained to think very socialistically, very reliant upon someone other than self to do for self. But I hope that if nothing else, these events will spark that truth in everyone's mind that if you are able to, it would behoove you and your family and your loved ones to repent, have a change in mind about certain things in your life. And things could be as simple as if you were accustomed to buying name brand grocery items, while the store brand sitting right beside it is half as much or 75% of the same amount, that you would consider switching to those store brands to further your buying power. If you are used to getting all of your herbs from outside providers, I perhaps think of getting you a $2 or $3 pack of organic and heirloom herb seeds and getting you a small amount of dirt, a couple flower pots, bucket, empty coffee can, whatever you have, and starting to grow said herb. If you have a little bit of property, be it an eighth acre, quarter acre, half acre, that instead of all of your yard being dedicated to grass that you relentlessly mow and try to compete with the Joneses and keep it cropped at a certain level, that you would consider tilling or in changing its use to growing you something, anything, your favorite fruit that can be grown in your area, your favorite vegetable, and you could subsidize those things at your grocery cost. If you have the means, maybe a dehydrator, and learn how to put things back in a way that will keep it a little bit longer, that you may only have to add a little bit of water to. If all of your water comes from a municipal source, maybe consider Ways to disinfect water. Many ways can be done. Clorox. Bleach specifically doesn't have to be any name brand, and many resources online to show you how many drops per gallon, how long to wait to do that, because like Texas, their municipal water sources, along with everything else, was affected, so they have no way to heat, no way to cook, and now they get boil water advisories. So even their water is technically not safe unless you have a way to disinfect that water. Many good prepping channels discuss these things. And here's the thing that you may need to understand about what people call preppers. They've been painted with a broad brush to sound crazy or ludicrous, but most of them, as you will come to know if you look into these groups, they're simply tired of being put at the mercy of big corporations for what type of food they eat, where their food comes from, who gives them everything, and they want to become a little more self-reliant so that in the event of a unexpected weather event, such as a few days ago down east in our state, a tornado hit, killing some people, causing a lot of damage in the middle of winter, which is not something most people would ever expect. But they do happen. The weather events are getting more and more unpredictable. And be it a hurricane, unexpected tornado, a flash freeze, heavy rains that could damage power lines or your ability to get to the grocery store, how are you going to heat your food? How are you going to cook your food? How are you going to clean your water if you need to? Do you know how to clean your water if you need to? What's on your shelves that can be eaten cold? What has to be cooked? There's so many ways to learn to do a little more for yourself. Can you cook in an open grill outside? Do you know how to? Do you have a grill to cook in? A fire pit? A way to keep warm that doesn't rely on electricity? And if it relies on propane, do you have enough propane put back for a week or 2 weeks or a month in a more severe situation? You can no longer trust the system to simply supply all your needs. The mainstream media will minimize what's going on because they don't want people to do anything but trust their advice, trust their leadership. But preppers in general are just people that want to go back to the old past, eat a little better, be a little more frugal and a little more thoughtful about where they spend their resources. Right now, if you have money in the bank, as weeks go on and inflation rises, the buying power of that money decreases each and every time inflation occurs. They have managed to sneak inflation in without people really expecting it because the food prices appeared to stay the same, but the packaging was smaller. So say if a can of coffee was once 16 ounces, they reduce it to 12 and charge you the same price. And then over time, they raise the price on the remaining 12 ounces. So you get a dual set of inflation where your money and buying power decreases. In the event that these types of things happen, that the food supply gets hiccuped again, such as we've seen with things as toilet paper and people literally punching each other in the face over toilet paper, which there's many ways to wipe your backside and keep yourself clean. There's no reason to go out and beat your neighbor up over toilet paper. But that's where we're at. It's a strange world that we now live in, but you need to think about you and your loved ones and those that may listen to you, that you can think about these things. How much food do you have in your house? The government has warehouses for themselves. The ruling class have no problem getting their food, their heat. Those that are telling everybody to stay calm as they freeze in their homes, I doubt highly they experienced any problems with the supply of electricity to their own homes, and their own needs were easily met. That's the way it works in a socialist country. The ruling class does well. Those underneath them who are waiting on them don't fare as well. But when you see the things such as in Portland, where people are digging through the trash, a Democrat-run state, and this ain't a political video by no means, but a socialistic type state that allows open drug use and just the kumbaya experience, as long as you look to us for leadership, are the same ones policing trash and not letting their citizens have it simply because they say so. And they'll come up with many reasons about why, but they're guarding trash is the end all be all. Venezuela, as it fell victim to more and more of what we're seeing here, went from, I believe at one time years ago, they were like the fourth wealthiest nation. And now they're digging through the trash for food is a normal thing there. And these are the times that we live in. So you have to look at the times, and then you have to try to think, well, how can I navigate these? Sister Angela, I think Martin, is one that has brought up that she's went back to more of a rural lifestyle and is very thankful for it. And many can say the same thing. Growing your own food or learning to buy in bulk so that you can stretch that dollar a little bit further to where if there's bad weather, or if there's an emergency, or if the supply chain is affected, you have a buffer that what you can add to it during those leaner times is what you do, but you also are prepared. You're looking at the environment that we live in. It's exactly what you see in Genesis 41. And if you've not read that lately, I go back and read the entirety of Genesis 41. When God had foretold of a famine that would come, it wasn't just idle knowledge. This information was looked at, and Joseph advised Pharaoh to appoint officers over the land to take up a fifth part of the land of Egypt in the plenteous years, in the fruitful times. He put back 20%. Verse 49 tells us that Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering it, for it was without number. It was too much to count. Skip down a few verses. The 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And then the 7 years of famine began. The 7 years of dearth or famine began. And the dearth was in all the lands, so it affected everyone. But in the land of Egypt there was bread, because of preparations, knowing the sign of the times. And we have the luxury of looking to the future by examining the past. These are things that have happened in the past in other countries. We have seen the effect of socialism. We've seen the effect of natural disasters. We have seen the effect of more cold winters. We have seen the effect of hotter summers. We have seen these things to let us know that these are unpredictable times, and measures can be taken to help make them a little more bearable, which is what I'm hoping to spark in the mind of anyone listening, to make the times a little more bearable. If you have $5 or $10 extra in your grocery budget, or if you can skimp on a treat, spend that on something to put on the shelf that has a long shelf life to help you in these type of times. Cans that can be easily opened, get you a manual can opener, and know how to use your tools and be prepared. If you're able, if you can't get an expensive generator, get you a small one. Try to keep it up as best you can. Run it occasionally to keep the carburetor and everything from gumming up. Keep you a supply of non-ethanol fuel. You don't want ethanol mixed fuel in small engines. And put it up and try to cycle it out from time to time. If you have to, put that fuel in your car and refill the container. Instead of putting the 5 gallons back into your car, put the jug amount into your car and then fill the jug back up, keeping a fresher supply as best you can. A couple kerosene or lamp oil fueled lamps, old tech, easy to use. Get you a few from yard sales, your dollar store, the Dollar Tree, wherever you can find them, and get you some light that doesn't require electricity or batteries to alleviate your need for as much dependence upon the grid should it go down for a time or a period. Many things can be put in simple containers for long storage life. Pinto beans, white rice versus brown, because brown is a little more oily and doesn't have the same shelf life. And then get you something that could supplement some vitamin C into your diet should you need it, just for general immune health, and you need vitamin C as a regular part of your diet to prevent things like scurvy anyway. These are things that we have delegated. This information and reliance, we have just flat out delegated it to other people. That's why people stand in line to go to the doctor over a cold instead of treating it themselves. That's why a lot of what we're seeing happening, because the small farmers, the more community minded, has reduced, and it's more socialistic, big corporation, big government society that we're living in, that want to police and control every aspect of your being, to include what you eat, where you get your food. The UK is actually discussing how bad it is that restaurants and food has been cooked by individuals during the midst of the last year's crisis, calling it a bad thing because they can't inspect it and they can't check it and they can't control it ultimately. Because individuals were stepping up and doing their part and helping to supply a need, which is a good thing. It just used to be a normal human thing before the leadership got so big. How much food do you have in your house? How many people do you have in your house? How long would that food last if that's what you've got for a period of time? Can you cook it? Do you know how to cook it? Do you, it bewilders me. Me and my wife were talking. I would be surprised, out of the 300 plus million people in America, if 1 in 1,000 has ever slaughtered an animal, processed it, and actually understand where their meat comes from and how to get it if they need it. This it bewilders me where people are right now. But this has been a slow, gradual shift to where everything is virtual, everything is digital, and the food is just supposed to magically appear on the shelves at the grocery store. I think there was a lot of planning in this shift. You'll hear, I've heard something so many times and it just bewilders me that people can't process what's being said as wrong. They say America is no longer an agrarian society. Every culture that has human beings is an agrarian society that grows food, that harvests food, that processes animals. The difference is America has delegated and handed away the control of that venue, which is the absolute essential component to physical life: food, water, warmth. They have simply delegated it to others. They don't even understand the real world. How many of you could go right now and take a chicken, take its head off, remove its feathers, remove its entrails, clean, process, and cook the meat? And that is the most simple, aside from maybe certain fish, foods in the realm of flesh based products that you could imagine to do. Beyond of, the ones that are shade more complicated, be it pork, venison, what in that animal is edible? What is to be discarded? Do you know? It might be good if you did. A squirrel, very similar in process, and it's not complicated. And it does taste like chicken, in my opinion. Same with rabbit. We are heading for ever changing times that I think it would be good if people would take it very seriously and look to prepare a little bit to insulate themselves and or their family from as much a struggle as what they may see. A little extra of this. If all of your resources fail as far as heat and you run out of those supplies to stay warm, do you have enough blankets in your house? Do you have something to keep warm? Many, many ways to do that to help ride out a very uncomfortable and bad situation, but come out on the other end. These are things that you may consider, because I think Christians sometimes think that they have to pick either or when it comes to reality of the spiritual and the physical. That you have to be all physically minded and kind of shelf the spiritual truths, or you have to be all spiritually minded and shelf life around you, when it really is a cross. Both realities, the vertical and the horizontal, exist simultaneously. And these are what we would call the life that we experience now. The creation can teach you so much. Watching nature, I think that's really why the push to separate people in big cities from nature has helped get us to where we are. Proverbs 6:6 through 6:8 says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise." You can learn from an ant. And this is a very powerful lesson this ant can teach you. "Which having no guide," they're not being told what to do. They have no overseer. They have nobody telling them left foot, right foot, do this, do that. And they have no ruler. "Provideth her meat or food in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest," because even an ant knows winter's coming. Things that human beings have somehow managed to forget. That you have a spring, a summer growing season, a fall harvest, because winter's coming and winter's here right now. If you've not been one who has prepared ahead of this in any way, you may be late to the game, but there's no better time to start than now. Put you back some canned fruit for your vitamin C and just some good energy. Put you back some canned meat. If you don't know how to can, you don't have a pressure canner, which any meat in a can, you can do at home with a pressure canner in jars. But they have canned beef, they have canned chicken, they have canned ham. And most of these are fairly affordable and they have a nice long shelf life. That'll give you the meat part to give you a little something. You can mix it with a little pasta, can of mixed vegetables, and a splash of water or chicken broth, which also comes in a box or a can and has a good shelf life. And you have a really decent meal for maybe $6 and a little heat. These are things you can do, folks. If you like fish, get you some canned tuna, relatively cheap in the grand scheme. The longer we wait, the less cheap they are. That's what inflation is. Do you have a way to protect yourself? If you're not a boomstick fan, which I can't understand why anyone isn't, other than lack of knowledge on the subject, get you something, some way to protect yourself against those who are less than scrupulous, those who have no Christian values, and who would happily take advantage of any disaster to harm you or your family. You, as a believer, have the right to defend yourself and your family. It is a part of showing love and doing your due diligence as a later parent, child. You do not promote violence. You do not advocate pro movement toward conquering through violence, but you have the right to defend yourself. And that too is being lost in modern Christianity through ignorance of reading the whole counsel, Genesis to Revelation, of God's word. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. He foresees, he's looking at the train coming down the track, he's seeing the potential, and he hides himself. But the simple, the unknowledgeable, the one that's less than wise on the matter, passes on and are punished. That's actually a parallel Genesis 20 or Proverb 22:3, Proverb 27:12, stated twice. We see the unpredictable times that are out there. We see the push for control of you, your food, your resources, but especially this thing right here between your ears. They want to instill fear in it. They want to instill dependence, and they want to take away the truth to leave that simplicity. They want to take away the knowledge to leave ignorance and replace it with a half truth at best, because you will follow your thoughts. You see how that works? Think as much as you can. Put your phone down. Turn off the television. The more that they can distract you, the less you can actually accomplish in this area. We have entire organizations that I won't even mention their name that has repeatedly mounted resources to respond to emergencies in the U.S. and who continue to fail. And that is their dedicated purpose. We have a so-called medical crisis in which they sent out money in the manner of a relief bill, and in the midst of that relief bill felt it necessary for transgender education to be funded in another country and mix that into the bill. These are the people that some are looking to wholeheartedly to step in and solve all their problems. whatever is in your ability to do to help uh, you and your family, your loved ones, through education and practice and wisdom, that's what I would recommend. Just whatever you can do, whatever you can afford, whatever changes you can make to stretch your finances a little further. Changing your mind about what you call a need. Many of your needs may be just luxuries that you're used to that you could take and trim back uh, resources from one thing and move it to another. That really is a need. If you have pets, if you can't get out and get pet food, do you have enough extra pet food put back for those pets? This is maybe just kind of an introductory video into the concept that you will be amazed at what you can do for yourself, what you can add into your life that will remove a little bit of reliance upon other things, other groups and entities, and put that control back into your hand. You will be amazed. Excuse me. The information's out there. I recommend prepping, going back old school, what my grandmother called everyday existence. I seen it growing up. The lady was just practical and smart and frugal. And in my lifetime, from my birth until her passing, because of her wisdom and the Lord's provision and blessing her in the things that she did, I saw her do very well. She didn't live extravagantly, but she not only provided for her own in the household, she was able, because of her smart and wise thinking and practices, was able to always help others and never put herself in too hard of a time because of her foresight. You can grow food on your porch in containers. You can grow them in anywhere that you can put dirt. You can grow it in your house. Lettuce will grow almost year round, and that is a great resource. Lettuce has a lot of vitamins. It's not very filling. But rice is very filling and relatively cheap, but doesn't have a lot of vitamins. So you can take items that have one component, mix it with another relatively cheap, get your vitamins and your hunger subsided. It's just knowledge. Knowledge really is power. Power brings about freedom. And that's what they want to take from everyone. I hope this sparks something in you. Do you know how to build a fire? At all? Do you know how to build a fire without a big lighter and half a gallon of charcoal fluid? Do you know that there's so many ways to do that? Do you know you can start a fire with a big lighter that has run out of fluid? It's possible. Because that little bit of warmth could be the difference between great suffering and worse. Or sitting there with a warm fire, even if it's outside in your little decorative fireplace, keeping warm, waiting on things to hopefully straighten back out. There's a lot that you can learn. You can't learn it and be caught up in every other thing in the world. You have to dedicate your mind and your time to other things. I hope that 2020 has shaken your confidence enough to see the need for a change in the way that we do things. right now, if you just grew seed on your property, if you per se had plenty of food, and heirloom and organic seed is becoming such a scarcity, being replaced by genetically modified um, things. Just growing and harvesting and knowing how to harvest those seeds, dry them, cure them, package them. That is a beautiful and wonderful thing to have, because those seeds come pre-programmed from God with the ability to grow food, and they're very necessary. And people would flock to maybe trade with you just for some seeds, for instance. Or if you just have a ton extra, for you just to give them to be a blessing to them. Guys, a new age is here. It's not coming. The new age is here. As this continues to play out, I think it would behoove us all to be circumspect, not to walk around as fools or ignorant, just putting their head in the sand, but to take positive and active steps to be a little more self-reliant and reliant upon the Lord, and a little less reliant upon those entities that claim they can fix all your problems when they clearly can't, and ultimately have no real desire to. So, just some thoughts, and I went a little long on this, longer than intended. But there are great channels out there. Deep South Homestead, Prepper Nation will get you in the ballpark. Pinball Preparedness will get you in the ballpark. And as I run across more and more, I know many, but the names aren't coming to my mind right now. They would just live in traditions, I think, is one great couple, Christian couple, that can help you get started. Simply, you don't have to have a lot of money or a lot of room to make improvements in these areas. So, with that, I want to say take care and God bless, and pray about this. Think about it. Really evaluate what you see going on around you, and keep one another in prayers, because I think this is an important subject that maybe is not being discussed a whole lot these days, when it really, really needs to be. So, till next time, take care and God bless.